Midnight. Apartment glowing blue from phone light. Emma Brooks, 30, just dumped by her cheating boyfriend of 6 years. She typed through tears. "Fuck you. I hope you choke on your lies." Hit send. Threw the phone down. 30 seconds later, it buzzed loudly with a reply. "You texted the wrong guy, but if it helps, lies don't choke people, they choke hearts." She stared at the screen in shock. The recipient wasn't her ex. It was Ethan Cole, single dad neighbor from downstairs. She didn't know then, but her life had changed forever. Emma Brooks, 30 years old, marketing professional, just ended 6-year relationship, skeptical about love. Ethan Cole, 38 years old, single dad, music teacher, living with his 8-year-old daughter, Lily. Lily, 8 years old, clever, always trying to befriend lonely people. Emma lived alone in a high-rise apartment. After 6 years together, her boyfriend had cheated with a coworker. She buried herself in work, smiled during the day, lost sleep every night. One evening, after several glasses of wine, she wrote an angry message to her ex. But her hand shook. She hit the wrong name. Ethan, the neighbor downstairs, someone she only knew from brief hellos in the elevator. When he replied, she turned red with embarrassment. Quickly texted back, "Oh my God, sorry, wrong person." He messaged again, "Don't worry, I've sent worse messages to my coffee machine at 3 a.m. She laughed. First time in weeks, they started talking, slowly, honestly. He asked, "Are you okay?" "I don't know. Maybe I'm tired of trusting the wrong people." Everyone's trusted wrong. What matters is not stopping trust. She didn't reply, but those words kept her awake all night. Next morning on her way to work, she ran into him walking his daughter to school. Little Lily waved. "You're the lady who sent the wrong text, right?" Emma blushed. Ethan smiled. "My daughter can't keep secrets." But the interaction had been more than awkward coincidence. It had been recognition. Emma had seen something in Ethan's eyes that morning. Not pity, not judgment, understanding. The understanding of someone who'd also been hurt, who'd also survived, who'd also learned to keep going despite the pain. Ethan had noticed things about Emma too, the way she carried herself, confident on the surface, fragile underneath. The practiced smile that didn't reach her eyes. The careful distance she maintained from everyone. The armor she wore to work each day and never took off. He recognized it because he'd worn the same armor. After his wife died 4 years ago in a sudden car accident, he'd built walls thick and high. Told himself they were for Lily's protection. But really, they'd been for his own survival. Because loving someone deeply and losing them suddenly was the worst pain he'd ever known. And he'd sworn never to feel it again, never to be that vulnerable, never to give someone that much power over his happiness. But Emma's message had broken something open in him that night. Not the anger in her words, the vulnerability underneath, the raw honesty of someone hurting so much they had to scream it into the void without caring who heard. He'd done that many times. Late at night when Lily was asleep and the house was too quiet and the loneliness was absolutely suffocating and unbearable. So when she'd texted wrong person, he hadn't let her disappear into embarrassment, had made a joke, had opened a door gently, not knowing if she'd walk through, but hoping desperately she would. And she had. Their first conversation had been superficial and safe. Weather, work, neighbor stuff. But the second night, at 1 a.m. when neither could sleep, she'd written something real. "Why did you respond to that message?" Most people would have ignored a stranger's anger. Because anger isn't the problem. Loneliness is. And your message wasn't angry. It was lonely. She'd stared at those words for 10 minutes before replying. "You're right. I am lonely. Even when I was with him, I was lonely. Maybe especially then. That's the worst kind. The loneliness you feel with someone. Because it means you're not just alone, you're unseen." "Yes, God, yes, that's exactly it. How did you know?" "Because I felt it too, before my wife died. We'd grown apart over the years, become roommates and co-parents, but not partners anymore, not lovers or friends. And when she died suddenly, I felt guilty for months. because part of me was relieved it was over, and part of me was devastated that we'd wasted our last years together being strangers living in the same house, pretending everything was fine. Emma had cried reading that late-night confession because someone understood deeply. Someone knew that relationships could be lonely and isolating, that love could feel suffocating, that you could be with someone every day and still feel utterly alone and unseen. From that night forward, something shifted fundamentally between them in a meaningful way. They weren't just neighbors anymore exchanging pleasantries. They were confidants and real friends. People who'd found each other by accident but stayed by conscious choice every day. A neighbor later recounted, "I saw them laugh together in the lobby. First time she hadn't worn earbuds in the elevator. From that day, they texted every night. She told him about fake relationships. He told him about simple single dad life. Aren't you afraid your daughter will grow up without a mother? I am. But I think if I live well enough, she won't lack love. And me, I don't know how to live without getting hurt anymore. Try starting with breakfast. Hurt people skip meals." She laughed. One morning, he left a box of pastries and a note outside her door. "Coffee doesn't heal heartbreak, but at least it warms your hands." She was moved to tears. That evening, she went downstairs, knocked on his door. The door opened. Lily ran out. "Are you coming over? Dad's making pizza." Emma looked at Ethan in an apron, smiled awkwardly. "I just wanted to return the box." "Keep it. Gifts aren't contracts." From then on, she visited often. Lily liked her, drew pictures for her, called her dad's friend Emma. Once she asked him, "If you could choose again, would you love again?" "Yes, but this time I'd choose someone who knows love doesn't need perfect, just real." She was silent for a long time, then whispered, "I wish someone had told me that." But their growing connection wasn't without complications and fears. Emma's walls were thick and reinforced, built over 6 long years of relationship erosion and slow disappointment, of slowly learning that her boyfriend valued ambition over connection, status over intimacy, appearances over authenticity and truth. She'd changed herself for him gradually, had become quieter and more agreeable, less demanding of attention or affection, had convinced herself that's what love required and deserved. Sacrifice, accommodation, making yourself smaller and quieter so someone else could be bigger and louder and more important. And it had never been enough for him. He'd still cheated without remorse, still lied repeatedly, still discarded her like she was disposable and easily replaceable and fundamentally unworthy. So trusting Ethan terrified her deeply. Because what if she was wrong again? What if her judgment was permanently broken? What if she gave her heart to another person who'd crush it carelessly? Ethan sensed her fear immediately, saw it in the way she'd pull back whenever they got too close physically or emotionally, the way she'd make jokes when conversations got deep and real, the way she'd leave before moments became truly meaningful. So he let her set the pace entirely, never pushed, never demanded, just showed up consistently, reliably and patiently, proving through action, not empty words, that some people could actually be trusted to stay. Lily helped too in her innocent way. The 8-year-old had an uncanny ability to break through Emma's defenses effortlessly, would ask direct questions adults avoided asking. "Why are you sad? Do you miss your boyfriend? Do you like my dad romantically?" Emma would answer honestly because children deserved honesty. "I'm sad because someone hurt me badly." "No, I don't miss him. I miss who I was before him. Your dad is very kind and patient. He's lonely too," Lily would say matter-of-factly. "But he pretends he's not. Adults do that. Pretend they're fine." Emma would hug the girl tightly, this wise little soul who saw everything clearly, who wanted her father to be happy, who'd appointed herself matchmaker without either adult realizing. One night after several weeks of texting, Emma told Ethan about the full story, not just the cheating incident, the years of emotional neglect that preceded it, the gaslighting and manipulation, the way her ex had made her doubt her own reality and perception, her own worth and value, her own sanity and judgment. "He'd tell me I was too sensitive about everything, too emotional and dramatic, too much and exhausting, And I believed him completely. Spent years trying to be less demanding, to take up less space in his life, to need less attention and validation, until I was so small and quiet, I barely existed anymore as a person. Ethan had listened intently, really listened without interrupting or judging, then said something that changed her. "You're not too much for anyone worthy. You're exactly enough. And anyone who made you feel otherwise was protecting their own inability to meet you where you were emotionally." She'd wept uncontrollably, deep, shuddering sobs that came from years of suppressed pain, because someone had validated her experience, had confirmed that yes, she'd been mistreated and manipulated. Yes, her feelings were justified and real. Yes, she deserved so much better. That night had changed something fundamental in Emma's self-perception and self-worth permanently and profoundly. She stopped apologizing for her emotions constantly and automatically and reflexively without thinking twice. Stopped shrinking herself to make others comfortable around her presence. Started believing that maybe, just maybe, possibly, she could trust again carefully and wisely and intentionally with the right person. Not blindly like before with her ex who betrayed her trust repeatedly, but carefully and intentionally and slowly over time with patience, with someone who'd earned it through consistent action and presence over many months and years, not through empty words and broken promises and false declarations of love. A doorman later recounted, they didn't hold hands or hug, but the way they looked at each other like people learning to trust again. One evening while Emma was cleaning, she received a text from her ex. "I miss you. You still love me, right?" Her hand shook. She meant to delete it, but accidentally sent a screenshot to Ethan instead of her best friend. He texted back, "What are you going to say to him?" "I don't know. Maybe I'm still angry, but also afraid I'll be weak." Anger is because you love truly, but if you go back, he won't learn anything. And if I don't go back, then you'll learn to love again, but this time yourself, she cried. Deleted her ex's number right then. Next morning, Ethan left a small bouquet and note at her door. "No one deserves your angry messages more than yourself when you dare to keep walking." She smiled, ran downstairs to thank him, but Lily opened the door. "Dad's at the hospital. He collapsed from exhaustion." Emma panicked, ran to the hospital. She held his hand. "You helped me out of darkness. Why didn't you help yourself?" He opened his eyes, smiled weakly. "Because I didn't think anyone cared." "You were wrong." After a few days, he recovered. When she brought Lily home, the girl whispered, "Miss Emma, Dad doesn't know, but he's smiled more since you sent that wrong text." She hugged the child, tears falling. "Thank you." But Ethan's collapse had revealed something both had been carefully avoiding for weeks. They'd fallen in love. Not suddenly like in movies, gradually and naturally, through late-night texts and early morning pastries and shared coffee, through shared silences and deep conversations about pain and healing, through Lily's laughter and Emma's tears and the small daily moments, through the slow rebuilding of trust that neither had thought possible again in their lifetimes. The hospital stay had forced them to acknowledge it honestly, because Emma had been terrified beyond words, had realized that losing Ethan would devastate her completely, that somewhere along the way, without noticing exactly when, he'd become essential to her happiness, not in a codependent or unhealthy way, but in a healthy partnership way, as a partner and friend and confidant, someone who made life better and richer but wasn't solely responsible for her happiness or self-worth. Ethan had seen it too clearly. The way Emma had shown up immediately without hesitation, had taken care of Lily with tenderness and patience, had held his hand gently, had been present and vulnerable in a way his wife never had been in their marriage. Not because his wife was bad or wrong, but because they'd never had this kind of deep connection, this depth of understanding, this level of emotional intimacy and trust. "I'm scared," Emma admitted one day after he came home from the hospital. "Of what specifically? Of this, of us, of caring this much about someone again. What if I lose you too? What if you leave me? What if I'm not enough again for someone I love?" "You won't lose me by loving me, and you've always been enough, Emma. More than enough. The question isn't whether you're enough for me. It's whether you're ready to believe you are." to believe you're worthy of real love. She'd nodded slowly, not fully convinced yet, but willing to try trusting, one day at a time. They took it slow and careful, no dramatic declarations or grand gestures, no rushing into things, just continued what they'd been doing naturally, texting, talking, spending time together comfortably, letting Lily be part of everything, building something real and lasting and healthy. One evening, several weeks later, Emma's ex showed up at her door unexpectedly, drunk and demanding. "You can't just ignore me forever. We had 6 years together. That means something. We had 6 years where you taught me I wasn't enough for you. Thank you for that painful lesson. Now leave my building. You're with that loser downstairs, aren't you? The broke music teacher with the kid?" Ethan appeared in the hallway right then. Must have heard the raised voices and commotion. "I'm the broke music teacher with the kid, and yeah, she's with me. If you have a problem with that, we can discuss it calmly like adults, or you can leave right now. Your choice entirely." The ex had looked between them closely, seen something he'd never given Emma in 6 years together. Partnership, protection, respect, genuine love. He'd left without another word, stumbling down the hallway, after Emma had hugged Ethan tightly for a long time. "You didn't have to do that for me." "Yes, I did. Because you've protected Lily and me with your presence and care. I protect what I love and value." "You love me?" "I've loved you since the wrong text that night. Took me a while to admit it to myself." She'd kissed him then for the first time, soft and tentative, sweet and promising, full of hope and possibility. Lily had peeked out from Ethan's apartment door, grinning widely. "Finally, I've been waiting forever for you two." They'd laughed together, all three of them, a family forming from a midnight mistake and the courage to answer a stranger's pain with compassion. The kiss had been everything and nothing like Emma expected, not fireworks or dramatic music, just rightness. The feeling of coming home after a long journey, of finding the missing piece, of being seen and valued and chosen. They'd stood in that hallway for several minutes, foreheads touching, breathing together, not talking, just being present together. "I'm still scared sometimes," Emma had whispered eventually. "Me too, but I'm more scared of not trying, of letting fear win, of missing this because I'm protecting myself from pain that might never come. What if it does come? What if we don't work out? Then we'll have tried, and that's better than wondering, better than playing it safe and regretting what might have been." She'd nodded against his chest, feeling his heartbeat steady and strong, matching her breathing to his, letting herself believe finally that this was real, that he was real, that they could be real together. Lily had interrupted by bringing them cookies. "I made these for your first kiss. Dad said I could use the oven." They'd eaten cookies in the hallway, 3 of them on the floor, laughing, building family one moment at a time. A nurse later recounted, "That girl took care of him like family. He wasn't wealthy, but everyone could see they were rich in feelings." 1 month later, Ethan opened free music classes for neighborhood kids. Emma came with pastries and coffee. "Aren't you resting?" "No. I used to think I only taught my daughter. Now I teach Hope." She helped him manage classes, handled communications. They worked together, laughed together, were silent together. One day, several months into their nonprofit work, she looked at him and said, "What if I'd never sent that wrong text that night?" "You would have sent it anyway, to yourself eventually, because you needed to say fuck you to fear, not to a person who didn't deserve your energy." She laughed, tears streaming down her face. "You always turn mistakes into magic and wisdom," he replied. "Because sometimes what's most wrong leads us to exactly right. Sometimes the worst mistakes become the best blessings." But what Emma loved most was watching Ethan with students, kneeling to their level respectfully, making eye contact genuinely, listening carefully, celebrating victories enthusiastically. He never compared students to others, never made anyone feel inadequate or behind, just met each person where they were at that moment. Music isn't about perfection. It's about expression and communication, finding your voice. Emma documented classes professionally, photos, videos, stories about transformations happening daily. She'd post them consistently. The community responded positively. More donations, more students enrolled. One student's mother told Emma, "My son was failing school, fighting constantly. Then he started guitar lessons here. Now he's on honor roll. He has a purpose, something he's good at. Thank you." Emma had cried hearing that, because this was what mattered, not profit margins or quarterly earnings, but real impact on real lives. But their relationship transformed more than just themselves individually. The music classes became real community. Kids from struggling families and difficult circumstances, single parents trying to give their children opportunities, immigrants learning American culture through music, people who couldn't afford formal, expensive lessons, but deserved to learn and grow and express themselves. Emma used her marketing skills strategically to get donations from local businesses, instruments from music stores, sheet music from publishers, a small grant from the City Arts Council. She built a professional website with online registration, created engaging social media presence showcasing student performances, turned Ethan's passion project into something truly sustainable and impactful long-term. And she discovered something profound about herself in the process. She was good at this meaningful work, not corporate marketing where she'd sold products she didn't believe in to people who didn't need them, but community building and social impact, helping real people, making a tangible difference in lives. This felt meaningful and purposeful in a way her old job never had and never could. She quit her marketing position after 3 months of volunteer work, started a nonprofit organization with Ethan as co-founder. Accidental Harmony, named after their accidental meeting through a wrong text, their mission statement, providing free music education and connecting lonely people through shared creativity and artistic expression. The nonprofit grew steadily, not huge or flashy, but steady and sustainable and real. 20 students initially, then 50 within 6 months, then 100 by year's end. Adults joined too unexpectedly, seniors wanting to learn piano, people with disabilities finding expression through adaptive instruments, anyone who wanted to learn and belong and connect. Emma watched Ethan teach with such infinite patience, such genuine love for his students, watched him give kids the attention and validation they didn't get elsewhere in their lives, watched him build their confidence and self-esteem note by note, scale by scale. And she fell more in love with him every single day, in small, quiet moments. The way he'd pack Lily's lunch with care, the way he'd text Emma good morning without fail, the way he'd remember tiny details, the way he showed up consistently, always, reliably, imperfectly, but authentically, but consistently present. From this day forward, I choose to look at each other longer than a heartbeat. I will live kindly. I will trust that wrong turns can lead to right places. I will believe that love is possible again, even after heartbreak. 1 year later, Emma opened a small cafe called Wrong Text Cafe, inspired by that fateful night. On the wall hung a photo of her, Ethan, and Lily, all smiling. Each table had a handwritten note, for anyone who texted wrong but found right. One evening, Ethan texted, "Your first message to me was feck you. What are you sending next?" She replied, "Love you." He sent back a photo, the cafe key on a heart-shaped keychain, the accompanying message, "Now it belongs to us." But the cafe became more than just a business or income source. It became a real gathering place and community hub for the music students and their families, for single parents needing connection and support, for people who needed community and belonging. Tables were always full of conversation and laughter, not because the coffee was exceptional or the food amazing, but because the space felt safe and welcoming, like coming home after a long journey. Emma hired people others wouldn't give a chance to, ex-convicts trying to rebuild their lives, people in recovery from addiction, single moms needing flexible schedules, gave them second chances the way Ethan had given her one that midnight. Lily helped after school every day with enthusiasm, took orders from customers, drew pictures for regulars, told everyone the story of how her dad and Emma met through fate. She sent the wrong text, But Dad said it was the wrong text. Magic. People loved it and kept coming back. The romance and serendipity, the proof that mistakes could become miracles, the evidence that wrong turns could lead to right destinations. Ethan taught music upstairs in the cafe's second floor every afternoon. Students could hear him playing beautiful melodies, smell Emma's coffee brewing downstairs. It was perfect integration and harmony, work and life and love and purpose, everything flowing together naturally. On their 1-year anniversary of that first wrong text, Emma framed it carefully, hung it in the cafe prominently, the actual screenshot preserved forever. F you. I hope you choke on your lies. Underneath, she added a handwritten note. Sometimes the wrong text finds exactly the right person at exactly the right time. That night, in their now shared apartment, Ethan asked, "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you'd sent it to the right person?" "I did send it to the right person. Just took me 30 seconds to realize." He kissed her. "Best wrong text I ever received. Best mistake I ever made." Lily came running in. "Are you two being gross again?" They laughed, hugged her. Their family, built from brokenness, healed through patience, sustained by love. Emma looked at her phone carefully, the same one that had changed everything a year ago through one wrong text, and sent one more to herself this time. You did it. You trusted again. You loved again. You're not broken anymore. You never were. If you believe healing stories like this deserve to be told, leave a comment and subscribe to my stories. We tell stories that shouldn't be forgotten. Stories that remind us mistakes can become miracles and wrong turns can lead us home.